Hello, hello, sweet babies. Thank you for dialing in with me today at the In My Feelings podcast. How are we all feeling? I know that is a very loaded question. I feel like it's always been a loaded question, though the last couple years, with those being under our belts, it's heavier than ever. But I honestly feel like that's one of the gifts the pandemics have left with us. The heaviness has created this almost forced sense of authenticity, which I personally love. Like, I love it when I ask people how they are and they're unabashedly honest. Because collectively, we all know that tomorrow is not a promise. And forcing formality is just too exhausting. So let's just be honest. Even if that honesty is a little uncomfortable or weird. And most people, when you ask them how they are, it usually comes with a little bit of a sad smile, and their reply is something like, I'm surviving. And surviving as it is now is getting harder and harder, but it's not impossible. It just takes a little bit more creativity and some planning. You don't simply have to survive, you can also thrive. So before I start, I'm just going to give you some stats, so we're all on the same page about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about poverty and the resources that we have as a community. So more than 37 million people in the U.S. right now are living in true poverty. And there's another 40 million hovering right above that line. According to the Federal Registry for Poverty, what constitutes poverty for a family of four like mine, any family of four making $30,000 is living in poverty. So if you divide $30,000 into 12 months, that comes to $2,500 a month for a family of four to live on. The average cost of a two-bedroom apartment in the U.S. is right around $1,700. So if you take $1,700 away from $2,500, that's going to leave a family of four with $800 for utilities, transportations, phone, and of course, feeding ourselves, which we like to do once in a while. And I don't know about you, but that math ain't mathin'. So I guess that somewhere over at the Federal Registry for Poverty, they might need to update that equation to get their numbers correct, because I'm not sure I know a single family of four who is going to be able to exist, let alone thrive, on $800 for phone, gas, car payment, and, food. And that brings me to our next little segment. This segment I'm calling From Old Poor to New Poor. From me to you, I'm the old poor, and if you're here, you might be part of the new poor. This is a part of a show where I share a little bit of a tip on how to save money on living expenses. Today's tip is shop at international grocery stores. On my little TikTok, I recently made a little video about this, and I was shocked to hear about how many people didn't know the absolute fire deals that exist at international grocery stores. I went to my little local Latin market this week and made some price comparisons. And the two stores I'm using as price comparatives, that's not a word, but you know what I'm saying, are one of my favorite local Latin markets. It used to be called Plaza Latina if you're local to Eugene, Oregon, but now it's called El Torito. And then the other grocery store is Safeway. So at El Torito, onions are 79 cents per pound. Fred Meyer's has them at $1.29. Cilantro at El Torito is 89 cents per bundle. Fred Meyer's $1.19. Apples at the Latin market is $2.29 a pound. Also $2.29 at Fred Meyer's. So they're even on that one. Avocados, $1.99.
You said Safeway, and you've been saying Fred Meyer over and over.
They're written differently on here. Okay, cool.
So sorry for. I mean, I don't know if you want to go back and start that section.
No, I want to start that section.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's so funny. I wrote down Safeway on the top and Fred Meyer's on the bottom. Okay.
Oh, and then the other thing, you've been using tools as your kind of one of your things, and this is tips. And so I don't know if you want to create those as different, but just thinking of that, because I think tools is something that we'll put together in a book that will be part of your Patreon offerage.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. All right. Ready? Okay. And that brings me to the next little segment of my show called From Old Poor to New Poor, a part of the show where I share a little tool on how to save money on living expenses. Today's tool is shop at international grocery stores. I recently made a short video on my little TikTok talking about this, and I was shocked to hear about how many people didn't know all the fire deals that existed at the international grocery stores. I went to my local Latin market this week, and I made some price comparisons. The two stores I'm using for comparisons is my local Latin market, El Torito, formerly Plaza Latina for anyone in Eugene, and then Fred Meyer's. So onions at El Torito is 79 cents a pound. Fred Meyer's has them at $1.29. Cilantro, El Torito, 89 cents per bundle. Fred Meyer's $1.19. Apples were the same, both at $2.29. Avocados at El Torito is $1.99 per avocado, and Fred Meyer's $2.29. A pound of just really good ground beef, $4.99 at El Torito, up to $7.49 at Fred Meyer's, which is, chicken thighs, we have $2.99 versus $3.99, and it honestly goes on. As you can see, the difference is very significant. And there's more than just saving money when you're shopping at international grocery stores. I like to look at the ingredients. Recently, I was at this Indian food store near my house, and they had this really delicious thing called masala munch, which is essentially like a spicy hot Cheeto with Indian spices. And first of all, they're super delicious, really, really good. And when I brought them home, we happened to have like American hot Cheetos in the cupboard. And I was looking at the 2 ingredient lists, and it was honestly shocking. The American Cheetos had over 50 things in it, half of which I could not pronounce. And then I looked at the Indian Cheetos, which had a better taste and they were cheaper. The ingredients were rice meal, edible vegetable oil, graham meal, natural spices, salt, sugar, and citric acid. That's it. And honestly, when you look at a lot of the backs of like snacks and food items at international groceries, they're actual readable ingredients on the back from actual food. It kind of gives you a little bit to think about, just about how our food is processed. And lastly, honestly, shopping at a local international grocery store is feeding money back into your local economy. Most international grocery stores are owned by families in your town, and supporting them means supporting their children. It means giving real, actual humans a better chance at thriving. In my town, the major grocers are Fred Meyer's, Albertsons, and Safeway, which are now all owned by Kroger. Kroger doesn't need any more of our money. That's just a fact. That doesn't filter back into our community. So speaking of community, I am very excited to bring my very first guest onto the show. He is a very important member of my community. He is the founder of Ghost Town Outfitters. It's a very unique thrift store here in Eugene, Oregon. He's also the co-creator of one of my very favorite things in my entire life, our son, Phoenix. Welcome to the show, my friend, my co-parent, and one of the wackiest people I know, Parker Hayes.
Ho, ho, ho. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, Parker. How are you feeling?
Feeling like a snack, looking like a snack. I'm doing very well. How are you?
All that talk about snacks, you're just like, I'm so hungry now.
Yeah.
Huh? I know.
But for real, if I could add one other detail that I caught on to not too long ago about foods at international grocery stores also, is that so much of the ingredients that we have in grocery stores here, especially if they were produced in the United States, they're banned in a lot of other countries. So not only do you get shorter ingredient lists, but a lot of those ingredients that they use, they're not using the banned chemicals that we get in. So even if it says wheat, right? We forget, they use tons of glyphosate on that wheat, but
they like trademark the word wheat to mean something else.
Right.
It's so crazy. I've been watching this really cool adventure for this kid on TikTok who's like a model from England.
Right.
And he went to New York for the first time.
Oh boy.
And he was like went to a Target and he was just like, he was flabbergasted at the amount of cereals that were available and trying them. He was like, it like hurt his mouth, but he like couldn't stop eating it. Yeah. Like, I honestly valid. I relate.
Now, a long time ago, we went to Holland. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but they only had muesli.
Yeah.
That was the only available thing. Like, if we were like, yo, can we get some sorrel around here? And they were like, what? We have muesli.
Here's muesli, which is basically rabbit food for people.
It is. It's got pellets in it.
It's fine.
I still don't know what they were, but those pellets were good.
I was like, can you sweeten this up? And they're like, here's some raisins. Yeah. Enjoy yourself. Okay, well, Parker, obviously, we've known each other for a long time.
We've gotten in trouble.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. I met Parker when I was 15. You were 16. Yeah. Yeah, and we were together for a really long time. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about yourself now. Like, what kind of person are you, Parker?
Man, that's a great question. I guess I was I like to think of myself as a former bad guy, and now I'm a reformed, fantastic person. No, it's been interesting. A lot of growth in the last couple of years, really kind of transferring my mindset, from more of a kind of, I guess I'll never get rid of this, but sort of a scrap it together, just fly under the radar, kind of don't be seen and don't be heard and try to make as few waves as possible kind of a person, and then now, sort of by, the universe or grace of God or whatever you want to say, I'm kind of put into this position now where I am much more forefront publicly. And so my responsibility has gone up, not only to the community, but also to, my family and everybody else to kind of make sure that stays in line. So, I guess the long and the short of it is I guess I just have a lot more responsibility than I used to.
You have a lot more structure now.
And a lot more structure. Yeah.
Yeah. You have a lot more structure because you are a business owner now.
I am a business owner. Yeah, exactly. And people are actually coming to my store. Yeah. Which is an absolute blessing. It's amazing to see such an effect in the community that I sort of didn't really expect. To be honest, I had gotten used to about like 10 people a day coming in.
Well, of course, Parker was talking about Ghost Town Outfitters.
Yes.
Ghost Town Outfitters is a very unique and interesting thrift store in Eugene. It's not in no way traditional, and I think that's kind of part of its charm. So, first of all, tell me how you kind of thought of the idea for Ghost Town Outfitters.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different, and I get some funny looks when people walk in the door. It's sort of a mix of amazement, and especially with the older people, a little bit of like, oh.
Oh, I have to dig through the clothes.
Do I put my hands in it?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Can I climb
it's
on
visceral.
it? Yeah.
It's a visceral experience.
It is, absolutely. So the idea actually... Well, it came from a leather jacket. I was working at 5th Street Public Market here in Eugene, and this was a number of years ago, and I'm just really into old things. I like old dusty items, I like the idea of a building that could be filled with stuff that nobody has touched for a long time. Like, that keeps me up at night, It's like I want to get into it so badly.
The picker lust.
It is, absolutely. Who knows what's in the basement, you know? Mm-hmm. So at one point I had access to this stamping machine that would put gold foil onto leather.
Like it would emboss it, right?
It was an embossing
I think I remember
machine,
that.
It was hot. And so this one afternoon I was thinking like, oh man, what do I want to put on my leather jacket? Like I wanted to do something cool, and I didn't want to mess it up. And I had a little cactus, like this little cactus print, and I had all these letters and everything. And I just kind of was like, I'm just gonna put Ghost Town on there. I imagine sort of this like guy on like a motorcycle, it's like, kind of the Easy Rider or whatever, from back in the 80s or something like that. Like, I've got a cool mustache, and everything. And so I put that on there because it was a biker jacket. And honestly, that kind of just sort of floated in the back of my mind for a really long time. And so during COVID, obviously, we saw this huge shift in the economy. And I had been thrifting and reselling before, and you can do pretty well. It was pretty easy once you sort of get your legs under you and you know what you're doing and you got your flow.
You were selling on eBay.
I was selling on
you
eBay.
Still did.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a couple other platforms as well too, depending on what it is that you would like to do. And during that time frame, not only did things become more expensive, but also the competition went up significantly because there were so many people who were going into a side hustle of some variety. And so I just sort of had it in the back of my mind that it would be really cool to find myself in a position where I could sort of provide enough stuff for me to list that was at like a really good sort of profit margin that I could survive, but then also that maybe I could help my friends too. And so a number of years ago, a buddy of mine and myself, we came across this it was this low murmuring in the streets, you know, they were like, there's a place where you can buy bales of clothing. And we were like, oh, bales, you say? Tell me more. You know, it was kind of
so spooky.
That type of moment, you know, we were like, okay. Oh, yes. And so we were like, please do tell. And so we tracked this place down, you know, and we got it. And so here we were like, okay, we're gonna buy it. It's 1,300 pounds of clothing.
Oh my gosh.
And we had nowhere to put it.
Oh my gosh, I remember this.
You remember this?
And there was a giant pile of clothes in your backyard.
Oh, it got so bad.
It got really bad.
I mean,
that was the first good attempt at Ghost Town Outfitters.
Thank you. Actually, yeah, so the original Ghost Town Outfitters was actually in a backyard off of Onyx Street on campus. And my main customers were actually spiders.
Yeah.
There was so many spiders.
Wow, what a true glow-up story for you.
I'm super happy to be working with more humans now.
Less spiders.
Less spiders, less rats.
Oh my gosh.
So, we basically, I had an Astro van, and we filled this Astro van probably 6 times. And basically we had this idea where we're going to take the really premium stuff out, and then the rest of it, we're just going to donate right back to them. So we literally had a van full, and we were just sitting in the donation line of the Goodwill right next door, you know, to where we were at. And we just started picking through it and just giving them bucket after bucket, and they just looked at us like crazy people. But we still ended up with so much clothing, and we threw it in the backyard, covered it with tarps, and we found one vintage t-shirt in the whole 1,300 pounds. So I just sort of had forgot about it for a little while. But then as the market began to change again, I was like, oh yeah, that's still there. Yeah. I could still go get it. And as I kind of thought back on it, I was like, you know what? Even though a lot of the stuff that was in there was not the premium item necessarily, there was a lot of really good stuff in there. There was still really wearable Levi's and, you know, Eddie Bauer and all this stuff that people would still just really enjoy to have. But at the time we weren't thinking about it in that perspective. So that was kind of the origins of where those things sort of began to come from. And then I just took a long break of I guess just sort of focusing on other things, and I really didn't think about it for years. It was years before it ever sort of started to come back again. And then just like everything else, out of necessity comes in, you know, the mother, or how does it go?
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, that's the one. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. I ended up not having a house. I ended up not really, you know, because the house was sold, and I was sort of going through this big transitional period. And then, you know, like we had previously mentioned, the market had shifted. It was harder to find items. So there was all these different things that were kind of culminating into this moment where I just needed to jump. Yeah. And I spent a couple of months looking for a warehouse, and that was really challenging. And at the time I was basically, living in a driveway in a trailer at that point. And so having all that happen, after a while, it just became like, where can I park my trailer so it's not in the rain? Yeah. I was like looking for just a place to put it. And then I kind of had this spark of inspiration, I suppose, and I realized like, oh yeah, I could go get those bales, and maybe there is something good in there. But at the very least, if I gave everything else to people for $1, like, I think people would be stoked on that.
They are stoked about that.
They seem to be stoked about that.
Well, we started thrifting together when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Because we were just like poor punk rock kids.
Definitely.
And we didn't have any money, and neither did our parents.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And so to have any kind of style at all, we literally had to go to thrift stores, and going to the bins was like a huge treat.
Yeah.
In my book, and for anyone who doesn't know, the Goodwill bins are like the Goodwill outlet stores where you can buy everything by the pound and you just dig through
all
it.
The discards, basically. That's kind of the one final chance before we sink it in the ocean.
And honestly, I think those skills that we kind of honed together when we were younger have transferred into the rest of our lives. Like, you and I are some of the most thrifty, creative people I know, because we, first of all, we had to be, and then it had to be turned into like this cool style that was like, now thrifting is so cool that everyone wants to go to the thrift store.
Some of the stuff that we had back in the day was gold.
I know.
It was pure gold, and we didn't even know it at the time. It was just like, we just had it because we found it for cheap.
Right.
But the way that we used to run it though back in the day, it was so much more lo-fi even than it is now. Like, that's one thing that I always try to drive home with people, especially if they're in sort of a financial bind, or they're finding themselves coming up short every month, is if you've got a phone or you've got any sort of way to connect to the internet, you have the ability to sell to the world.
Yeah.
Literally, somebody in Japan could be looking for the thing that you have. And so when we started doing it, we would go pick, and we would fill up bags full of stuff, and then I'm sure you probably remember, we would take off and we would go to Buffalo Exchange, Red Light, what was that? Plato's Closet, which was just starting at the time. All these different places where they would give you cash for the clothes that you found. So, we would pay pennies or whatever for what we had found, and then they would give us a paycheck. And then that's how we were, taking care of ourselves a lot of the time, was with that and whatever part-time job we were working.
Yeah.
But now, it's like, if you can hone in on what it is that you're looking for, kind of figure out a couple of key things that you're like really good at, you just put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And then somebody will find it someplace.
Well, speaking of that, so, obviously there is like a need for this like side hustle of selling stuff.
Totally.
And, I recently started selling on eBay like a few months ago. And I just started with things I had at home. Yeah. Like, I just went through my closets, I went through my cupboards, knick-knack boxes from a million years ago. And it's been pretty good, honestly. Like, it's been pretty consistent. So, like, if someone wanted to start a side hustle of selling on eBay, other than starting with what they already have at home, what are like 3 good go-to items that are like, these are the type of things that, move quickly for you? And
Right. Beanie Babies. All
day. Stop it right now.
It's coming back.
Coming
back, baby.
No. I was at St. Vinny's the other day, and I saw they had a Furby in a box for $60. $59.99, and I was like, and I was trying to be cool and just be like, ma'am, this is so overly priced.
Excuse me.
This woman pulled up eBay, showed me the exact same Furby for $150. And I was like,
that's a flip.
She's like, is it that bad of a price? I was like, I just want to do cute things to that Furby. You don't even understand. I didn't even want to thrift it. I didn't want to flip it. I just wanted to make weird art out of it.
Which I think, honestly, And again, who wants to pay that sticker price, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous.
It
but,
is.
you know, you add the bedazzling to it, and
it does add value.
That's a $250 Furby, if you ask me.
Check out my TikTok for chaotic, crappy crafts.
What I'm really looking forward to is my glitterized and bejeweled Teddy Ruxpin, if I may.
Ooh.
When I find one that functions,
yeah,
you know, I
will bedazzle it.
Yeah, I want that thing to just look crazy.
I'm gonna put it in full BDSM leather daddy care with nipple rings. No, just joking. I won't do that.
Okay.
No, I won't do that. No.
I'm only gonna play hair metal on it anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
through your Teddy Ruxpin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just find only Motley Crue tapes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so no, but seriously, what are good items? Like, what are good things that people can like move through pretty fast?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
So the first thing that I always suggest to everybody is you're already into a cool thing, right? Yeah. You might not know it, you know, but you have a knack and a skill that somebody else doesn't have, whatever it is that you're into. Mm-hmm. So if you understand old sports gear or something like that, then you're going to be able to go laser focused into the sports section, find the USA made baseball glove that is really cool, and put it on eBay and sell it really quick before somebody else would know what that is. There's certainly a number of ways that you can go about it. One of the things that you can do is you can just go bread and butter, brick and mortar, mall brand stuff. Okay, so you could walk in there, and if you went into Goodwill, or you know, where we'll say Goodwill for sake of discussion, because they've got the 75% off tag in town. If you just go in there, which shop the 75% off tag,
absolutely,
it's baller.
Yeah,
just do it.
Yeah.
But if you just load it up on all of the Gap, J. Crew, Abercrombie, and sort of those associated like mall brands that are just like cornerstone.
Black Market,
yeah. Banana Republic, that's the other one I was trying to think of. Yeah, honestly, J. Crew, Gap, Banana Republic, if you just did those three on the 75% off tag and you paid like $1.75 a piece, you would be doing great.
And you actually, I texted you a few weeks ago because I was at a Goodwill and I found a Christian Dior trench coat for 75% off. So that was like, it was like $50 at Goodwill, so it was like $25. So I think it was like ended up being $12.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
And you were like, actually, that's a really good thought. Is like you should always go through the trench coats because there's often like higher end trench coats that people pass over.
Very, very frequently not picked. I've pulled a number of Burberry trench coats out of there as a result of that. Same thing, but. Yeah, it just kind of depends, again, on the angle that you want to go with. So if you just want to do like a bunch of bulk stuff that maybe you're not super inspired with, but each one of those things are going to sell, you know, for anywhere between $12 and $20, those types of brands are great. The next thing that you can do, so you can either play it like really, really inexpensive items that sell for $10 to $20 over and over and over and over and over again. Or you could refine what you're looking for and just, you know, every shop you only pull the items that you know are going to be a 3-digit sale, right? So you're only, you know, like myself, when I go out, it's like I like to pick up on sort of like boutique men's brands, you know, that are like, you know, say like Taylor Stitch, you know, or Filson, or, you know, something like that, where I know it's like made in USA, regardless of what it was. That thing was $250 when it was new, and there's a huge enthusiast market for it. And that's the biggest thing, like in keeping in mind with online reselling, is put yourself in that mindset of enthusiast market. That's the best thing. So it's like, if you hold an item and you look at it and you say, would somebody be enthusiastic about this? Yeah, it's probably going to sell. Yeah, right. So, or going back to my first statement, if you're enthusiastic about it, it's probably going to sell. Yeah. You know, doesn't matter, even if it's just like you're into Star Wars or like whatever, there's somebody out there for it, you know? So,
you can also just I use Google Lens a lot.
Google Lens is great.
Because I just like Google Lens the whatever I think it is, and I was like, oh, this is on Poshmark or eBay for 4 times the amount that it's on sale for here, you know?
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Oh, and you know, like for a lot of our millennial babies and stuff like that. I mean, Y2K is back. Like these kids in these streets, they just want what we looked like when we were 19.
But you know what's weird? They want to look like us when I was like 14 or 15. Right. And that was not cool. I actually was cleaning out the closet with our child today, and he actually wanted to help me clean my closet, which I was like, what? Wow. But I bought at the thrift store some like Y2K era Gap pants that are like lined with fleece, and they're like track pants.
Scrumptious.
Yeah, they're yellow, bright canary yellow. Oh. And I had a pair.
How much do you want for them?
I knew it.
I'll buy them on site.
I think they were at Goodwill for like $14.99, so that was an expensive Goodwill expense. But I was like, Phoenix, should I keep these? He's like, no, you've never worn them. He's like, I'm like, but I had them when I was in the 8th grade. And he's like, well then wear them. I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So I will be selling them on the eBay store. But like I looked at them up on eBay, and they're selling those stupid pants that I wore in 8th grade that are not flattering, are crinkly, and you know, like the track pants that have the little boggle at the end, the Google boggle thing.
Oh yeah,
you know, because it's like elastic, and you step on them constantly.
Just like stepping on a Lego.
It's horrible. It's a horrible design.
Yeah, or if you've ever gotten that thing caught on something, and you take about 3-4 steps, that thing is stretching out behind you. Yeah, and it's just
snapping your ankle. Yeah. You know what I really want? I had a pair of Jinko jeans in the 8th grade that they were. I think they were 42 inches.
Do you remember what those are called?
What?
Gigapipes.
Yeah. They did call it gigapipes because they had lime green piping, like swirly piping down the sides. Yeah. Those things were soaking wet when they were bone dry.
I actually, you know what I had to do? I hopped on a live on Instagram the other day because I had to school these children on how to keep the back of their baggy pants from getting wet. They were all putting rubber bands around their ankles. I was like, brothers and sisters, please allow me to elaborate. Stop it. You got to put a thumbtack in the back of it. Everybody knows that.
Obviously, clearly a thumbtack.
Yeah, but no, if you have Jinkos, those things are Gucci now. So
I know. They are. Yeah, it's wild.
Pull them out of the closet and just wear them. Honestly, don't sell them.
I know.
But they are really valuable.
I just want a pair so bad.
Yeah, I don't know how. I think it's because maybe Virgil Abloh died or something like that. But it's like, how did we go from all these kids wanting like Supreme and Off-White and all these things to now they want everything that was at Hot Topic in 2003, or they're like fighting over South Pole.
I blame Oliver Tree.
He is
fully blame Oliver Tree.
He is not guiltless, that's for sure.
No, he has his part to play in this.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I really love about Ghost Town Outfitters, I've gone a couple times now just to like hang out and pick through the pile and stuff like that. One of the best parts about that specific experience is, you walk into the door and there's just a giant pile of clothes on the ground. Mm-hmm. And, like you said, people walk in, they're a little shocked. Mm-hmm. But this funny thing happens when you sit down in the pile and start digging, and you look to the person next to you and you show them the weird thing that you found. And all of a sudden you're like in this conversation and you're like talking. Honestly, it's so hard in our world to connect with each other now, especially after COVID, where we had to be apart, and there's so much tension about being close to each other. So now that we're able to be close, I feel like people have kind of forgotten how to connect without an activity.
It's true.
The thrift store, like your place, is such an incredible experience because you're doing something with your hands, and you can kind of focus on that, but then you can kind of have a light conversation. I mean, last time I was at your place, I had a friend who I hadn't seen for like 8 years showed up, my friend Claire, and I was like, oh my God, hi, we were just sitting there chatting, and I was just talking about, what I want to do in the spring and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I was like, I really want chickens, and she was like, oh, I have a chicken coop. Yeah. I was going to be a farmer when the pandemic started, and now I'm not going to be a farmer, and I never used this chicken coop. Do you want it? So now I have a free chicken coop because of just a conversation I had with, someone next to me digging through your pile. And I really think that those community spaces were like the kind of the push to spend a lot of money. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when you're sitting in a community place where you can meet someone, there's a lot of pressure to like continue buying drinks or buying food or playing games or like whatever. Like there's a big push to spend money. There's not a lot of places where we can just sit and kind of like be casual with each other.
Right. Yeah, I kind of almost imagine Central Perk, on Friends, where everyone just kind of sits on the couch. Yeah. And I actually had that the other day, where so I have this couch area, and for the listeners, when you guys come to the shop, eventually there is sort of a living room that I've built in there, and I like to be comfortable. Let's be realistic. I like to have a nice soft place to sit, but I also wanted it to be a place where people could come in and just sort of like sit down.
Relax.
Yeah, and not really have any particular agenda other than to just maybe talk about the thing that they found, or what they're going to do next, or what they like, what they don't like. Just something simple. And that actually happened the other day, which was really nice, because for the last couple of months, it's really just been a lot of people walking in and trying to buy all of my blankets. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's hard to keep this place warm.
It's cold in here?
Like if I run the heater and it's warm in the warehouse, it's too much money.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of money. So we got blankets around here. Yeah. That's the way we do it. And so they're like, but how much is that blanket? And I'm like, it's not. That's a working blanket.
It's a house blanket.
Yeah, that's structural. We keep that. They're like, can I get that pillow? And I'm like, no.
No, it's mine.
Yeah, what am I supposed to put on my low back when it's 9 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
So before, it was a lot of that kind of stuff, but I think people are starting to understand it now.
Yeah.
And that has been so inspiring for me, because I will be totally honest. My goal, I guess, in the whole thing was to just have a place that was cheap. Right? Mm-hmm. I wanted to be so punk rock about it, because every time I would go into the Goodwill, it's one item for $20. Oh, and by the way, bucko, no returns. Enjoy. Like it still smells like armpits. Have a nice day. And then you leave with it, and you're like, wow, I really feel like they took something from me. Like a little piece of my soul went with it, because it's so unhuman at this point. Plus, we know that, come on, let's be real, like, Goodwill is not a non-profit organization where they're really,
lies, fallacies,
really great
fairy
to
tales.
The world. Yeah. So I just really had this sort of punk rock vibe about it, where I was just like, man, well, if I could take like half their traffic, right? Like, and I'm just gonna sit over here, in the parking lot, and I'm just gonna watch them crumble at a distance. I'm just gonna see the smoke on the horizon.
Taking on the man.
Yeah, that's it.
Goodwill man.
yeah, and I'm just gonna see the guy, in like the suit. And like, he's got the Armani suit on, and he's got his like Bentley out front, sad. And like the back of his jacket says like Goodwill, or like, like his license plate says like Goodwill, but like with like less letters, and he's out in front of the shop going, no, Parker, curses. And like, that's kind of been my dream, ever since they hiked the prices and made it so horrible. But this is the thing that is the secondary, but I believe now more important essence of what Ghost Town Outfitters is, and that is that people are sitting down in the pile and making a friend. People are just meeting up there just because. People are spending 2 hours there, and they don't even know why they were there for that long, and they're getting a huge bucket of stuff, and they go, well, how much is it? And I go, how does this sound? And they give me this look like, really? And I go, yeah, dude. Yeah. And they're like, are you sure?
That's my favorite part, is when you price things in front of people and you're like $7 and they have like 7 things in their hand. They're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And like, that's because it's used clothing.
Correct.
Fabric is the biggest commercial waste in the entire world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the fact that, we have fast fashion is basically like destroying the economy. It's really bad. So to have a place where it's like, well, we're just gonna be here together, enjoying the space and enjoying each other and like reconnecting and learning how to be a community again. Like, that's really a beautiful thing. And the fact of the matter is, you get new bales every week, and so you're just donating back into our town's thrift stores instead of like giving back to Goodwill and giving back to St. Vinny's. You're actually like giving to people in need, which is
a good portion of it goes to the mission because they give their stuff away for free as well. I've also been doing some work with a couple other smaller charities who come and pick up a few bags, as well as 4J. There's been a couple of people who they're sort of running
the school district 4J.
And I don't want to shout out like 4J like I'm like connected with them because I'm not. It's just a couple of people who are administrators there, and they like to have clothing available for families that are low income, and so I've been trying to help fill their closets as well.
You also have free kids clothes.
I do.
Like you just have a giant pile of free kids clothes, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
Trying to thrift for 5-year-old boy clothing is almost impossible because they destroy everything. So it's really nice to have a place where it's like it's free.
Dude, the SpaghettiOs are coming. Like, the minute that you like go to the register and you buy that new Oshkosh Bagosh and you pop that tag off, like all of the SpaghettiOs in the cabinet are shaking.
They're waiting.
Yeah, they're waiting to just spill all over the front of that thing. $18.99, $25.99 down the drain.
Gone.
Yeah. So no, I cannot feasibly or reasonably ask for money for kids' clothes. Like every single time I tried to, not only is it extremely small and just like there's so much of it, there's just little socks and it's just like it's a shirt that barely fits on my fist sometimes, and I'm like, what am I supposed to price this at? And
a penny?
Yeah, exactly. And so I finally just got to the point after a couple of months of doing it, and I was just like, no. Like I'm a parent. I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to make those decisions. Like you said, so many people are right on the cusp. I think there was like a government statistic that I read that said that the average person is approximately $500 away from absolute ruin. Like that's it. Like if an event happened that cost more than that, they would lose everything. And so I'm like, who am I to put a price on clothing kids? Like to me, I mean, children are the most important thing. They're so important. They're so beautiful. I'm like, make mom and dad pay for their britches, but get in there, kid. You can have whatever
you need. Well, Parker, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you coming in, being my very first guest.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You were my very first serious boyfriend.
Yeah,
you were my very first husband.
And like a lot of people when they start podcasts, I'm sure that's the first thing that they do. They're like, oh, I would love to hang out with my ex-husband. I would
love to hang out with my ex-husband.
Yeah, like
on my first
just
show.
Trapped in an apartment with an ex.
Honestly though, like we've known each other for going on 20 years now, and having broken up and blah, 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 all those things, like that's lifetimes.
We've been in the trenches.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too. I think that's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get over it. No, just joking.
And I'm proud of you.
Oh, thanks,
That's the other side of it.
I'm proud of you too.
Thanks.
We're doing good stuff.
Hey, we're
killing it.
Yeah, we're gonna make it.
I really hope so.
Yeah.
If we don't make it, and if we do, either way, our child will have a really, really excellent autobiography.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah, and if I don't make it before you don't make it, would you please make sure that my body's covered in glitter and pom-poms and little jewels and
Parker,
rhinestones?
I will bedazzle you before you hit the grave.
Thank you.
Of course I will.
On the way out?
Yeah, rhinestones on the eyes, like pennies, but just gems.
for the fabulous boatman.
I'll send you out on a pyre of glitter dust, sparkles, pom-poms, and feathers.
That's exactly what I want.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, sweet babies. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back in 2 weeks with new stories and more tales and more tools for you. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at In My Feelings with Miss Buttons. And if you want to support the show, you can always check out my Patreon at patreon.com/missbuttons. So remember, take care of yourself. You are important. Stay kind and stay weird. I love you. Woo!
Gold.
That was awesome.
Wow.
That was awesome.
Man, great fade out too. That felt really pro. That felt
The pro fade.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yes, that was great.
It was it's like so much better talking to another person. Like, honestly.
It's probably easier to, because all the pressure's not on you.
Yeah.